That was a lot of very good information. Next up, please welcome Max Issokson, Senior Research Analyst at Wood Mackenzie. He specializes in U.S. residential solar and storage markets, leverages his expertise in interconnection data analysis to develop key insights and data products, including the U.S. Distributed Solar Leaderboard. He also contributes to the quarterly Solar Market Insight Report, published in collaboration with the Solar Energy Industries Association, SEIA. And let's welcome him as he's gonna talk to us about Puerto Rico being the heart of the U.S. solar and storage industry.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Max Issokson. I'm a senior research analyst at Wood Mackenzie. And Wood Mackenzie is a global research and data analytics firm. We cover energy markets around the world. I specifically focus on residential storage in the US and Puerto Rico. And so recently we wrote a report on Puerto Rico, given some data we got from Luma Energy, and I wanted to share some key highlights from it and sort of give another view of what our market outlook is for the Puerto Rico market. So to start off, I want to show you the freshest data we have in terms of how the residential solar market in Puerto Rico is performing. So if we look at last quarter, Q3, Q3 of 25 was the second largest quarter on record for residential solar in Puerto Rico, with close to 90 megawatts of residential solar installed. This is a very impressive number, given the fact that just a few years ago we were seeing less than 10 megawatts a quarter. And the rise in the residential solar industry in Puerto Rico can largely be attributed to a huge demand for resilience. So before Hurricane Maria, there was some solar installed, maybe 25 megawatts, but a lot of it, was very little storage installed with it as well. And then since that event where the island lost power for an extended amount of time, we've seen sort of the rise of the residential solar business. So the growth here has been a direct response to a fragile and unreliable grid, which is unfortunate, but is also what's sustained the market. And another key characteristic of the Puerto Rico market is that it's dominated by third-party ownership financing. So due to the challenging socioeconomic conditions in Puerto Rico, where median income of around $25,000 and high poverty rates, the reality is that a lot of Puerto Ricans don't have the means to buy their residential solar systems through cash and loans. And so what we've seen is that the third-party ownership has accounted for 70 to 80% of the residential market in Puerto Rico. And I wanted to show what this looks like with some other states. So this is TPO shares of residential storage in some other markets for which we have data in the US. And you can see that Puerto Rico exceeds all of them. And then we can also see that it's the national share of the market that's TPO is around 57%. So Puerto Rico is 70, 80, the national is 57. So with that, I want to get into one of the key takeaways from our report. To start off, I wanted to show this slide to show that one of our key findings is that there's going to be continued growth in residential solar in 26 and 27 in Puerto Rico, according to us. You can come back next year and tell us if Ohm or Wood Mac was correct on this, but there are a number of reasons why the Puerto Rico solar market is robust and will be resilient in the coming years. The first of which is resiliency, which I've already talked about. The second of which is high retail rates. So yesterday, during one of the workshops, we were talking about the significant portion of the electric rate in Puerto Rico and how it's tied directly to fuel costs. And so, petroleum being expensive, as an expensive component, Puerto Rico has very high retail electric prices compared to the U.S. total, which is around 17, or U.S. average, which is around 17%. Another key reason why the Puerto Rico market's going to continue to grow is because of the prevalence of TPO financing. And so one of the biggest changes from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or the OBA, was the elimination of Section 25D, which is the residential component of the tax credit. But the reason why we think Puerto Rico is going to continue to grow is because the Section 25D does not have any impact on this market, because Puerto Rican residents do not have a federal tax liability to apply this credit to. And for the TPO market, this segment, through mechanisms that were covered in 2 presentations ago, are going to be able to safe harbor equipment through 2030, and we expect TPOs to be able to meet the demand with FIAT-compliant equipment. And then the last key resilient driver in the Puerto Rico market is one-for-one net metering. We heard the governor this morning talk about net metering, and we heard her support for it, which is promising. But really, one-for-one net metering is a pillar of what this industry is built on. And I figured I could just add some context in terms of how I'm thinking about the Puerto Rico market compared to some other state markets. So in the mainland US, there are a number of markets that are transitioning away from net metering. And so these include California, North Carolina, Illinois, some of these state markets. And a couple of the reasons why they do that, well, one is the idea, or one is to encourage storage adoption. And in California, the CPUC implemented the net billing tariff, which was a concerted effort to boost storage attachment rates. In Puerto Rico, the attachment rate is already 100%. So there's not going to be a demand for a more of a net billing type of billing structure to boost storage attachment rate, because we already have high storage attachment rates. So that's one factor. And then another reason why net metering is coming under attack in some other areas is due to the argument of there being a cost shift, or an unequitable shift in funding from wealthy people who install solar, and then other folks who are paying into the system. And the point I'll make about the Puerto Rico market when it comes to net metering is that whereas in California were a lot of wealthy homeowners who installed solar to save money and get bill credits, in Puerto Rico it's more about basic survival and affordability. So there's not as much political tension between the distribution of the have and have-nots in the island of Puerto Rico, and there's more of a sense of community and an understanding that resilience is an important part of survival. And then the last point I want to make is about just generally high level about how Puerto Rico is a glimpse into the future for US markets. So there are a number of characteristics about the market that the mainland US is going to trend towards in the next 5 years. So the first of which is TPO percentage. I showed the figure that the TPO percentage in the US mainland is around 57%. With the elimination of 25D and the continued ability of TPO players to claim the ITC through 2030, given safe harboring and FIAT requirements, we expect the TPO market in the US to approach 75 to 80% in the coming years. And that is more similar to what we already have here in Puerto Rico. Another key thing we're going to see in mainland US is rising attachment rates. So with the elimination of net metering, there's going to be a drive to self-consume solar power to limit payback periods. And so we're expecting attachment rates to rise all over the country. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the last characteristic that makes Puerto Rico a good example of where the US mainland is headed is virtual power plants. We've heard a lot about the CBES program at this conference so far. And it's really impressive the scale at which it's operating on the island of Puerto Rico, and also the penetration that it's achieved of existing projects. So we talked about 81,000 batteries being enrolled in this program. There's 185 roughly thousand batteries we estimate are deployed out there. That's roughly 40% or over 40% of the penetration of batteries. So we expect virtual power plants to gain momentum and approach similar scale in US markets. So I just wanted to, I'm out of time, but I just wanted to give the chance to provide some more competitive landscape information if you are interested in taking pictures of this or seeing this. But yeah, we also have similar data to Ohm in terms of battery storage suppliers, modules, and inverters. So this is just maybe a little bit bigger text. I don't know. But with that, yeah, it's been a pleasure being here, and thank you very much for this opportunity. And it's great to support CESA. Thank you.